Why do we collect intelligence?
Knowledge.
Yes, so who can be more knowledgeable?
We can.
Foreign policymakers. Okay, so the intelligence community is collecting intelligence to help the foreign policymakers make better foreign policy, make better informed foreign policy. And what is, and this is a question that I think we as Americans don't ask ourselves very often. What is our foreign policy about? What is it that we are trying to do in the world? Are we?
No, we're not doing a good job.
We don't have any.
No, but is that what we're out there for? Really, we are trying to keep America safe and economically sound. Yeah? So when you hear people complaining about intelligence collection is driven by oil companies, well, yeah. It's a big piece of what we do. It's a big part of our economic security too. So I just think about that. Think about policy and why we have it as we go forward. But let me explain how intelligence agencies do what they do and why they do it. Foreign policy makers make these decisions about what we're going to do in the country. But to have a good policy, they have to understand what's going on in the world. So what happens is the officers in the intelligence community go to foreign policymakers regularly, every day, every week, and say, what is it that you want to know that you don't know already? And what we call those are intelligence gaps. Does that make sense? You know, I don't need more information about what I already know and what I already understand. What I need information about is what I don't know. So right now, what are, John Brennan, General Clapper is head of the national community, the intelligence community. John Brennan is head of the CIA. And both of them are real proponents of what's called a 5-question policy. By that they mean we need to every day say to ourselves, ask ourselves, what are the 5 questions that foreign policy makers need to be asking today? What is it that they want to know? And those are the questions that we ought to be seeking answers to. So right now, let me ask you that. If you were a foreign policy maker, what are the 5 questions you would want to ask? In today, you know, looking at the paper, looking at CNN, whatever it is that you saw this morning, what are the 5 questions in today's policy that you would like, or in foreign policy that you would like answered?
Who's the biggest threat?
What's the biggest threat? Give me some more specificity to that. I mean, we see a lot of threats, so.
As far as nuclear and attacks on the
So this is security. What poses the biggest threat in terms of America's security? You know, we ask that all the time. A little more specific.
How do we clean out the White House?
It's not an intelligence question.
Blind Duck would know.
Where does Israel stand
Where does Israel stand vis-a-vis what?
in the big scope of things, I guess?
You mean where do they stand in terms of their own policy, or what do we want to do with Israel?
Both.
Yeah. Yeah, and what's their role in the Middle East and everything surrounding Israel is always a big issue for us. Yeah?
I think another big question is where do the Chinese stand on what's going on in the Middle East?
Yeah. Where do the Chinese stand on that? And why China in the Middle East?
Their economic power and oil. They need the oil.
I've spent a lot of years in Africa and watched China own, buy all of the natural resources in Africa. Everything. And we have some stuff on the coast of Nigeria. Everything else basically in the continent is owned by China now, which is, you know, interesting. I think a lot of Americans don't realize that. What else? China. So you want to know about China, you wouldn't know about Israel.
What's North Korea doing now?
Yeah, who is that crazy man, and what in the world is he doing? Yeah, that's always a good issue. And why? Why do we care about North Korea?
They have nuclear weapons.
Because they can launch something and get to Alaska, Seattle, San Francisco, or whatever. And when you've got somebody with that kind of, I mean, truly, that kind of mental stability, what's going on? Yeah. What else? And you know, North Korea is a real issue because we have no presence in North Korea. We have no diplomatic relations with North Korea, so we do not have anyone official in North Korea. What are the other countries in the world that we do not have official relations with? Iran. Those are the two big countries for us that we would like to be in that we don't have official contact with. What else? Any other questions?
How equipped and ready are we as a United States to defend ourselves?
Okay, that in itself is not an intelligence question because it's about America. But what you're asking is, can we defeat the powers around us? So what we're asking always of our intelligence communities is the status of the offensive capabilities of all the countries that we're concerned about. Yeah.
What about Russia?
What about Russia? What do you want to know?
Well, what are they up to?
Yeah, there are a lot of questions of what are they up to kind of thing, yeah. And here's why I want to get to that is because every agency in the intelligence community has its own responsibilities. Agriculture has a huge intelligence collection capability, as does Treasury, as does the FBI, as does DOD. But they have their own questions that they ask. What I want to talk to you about today is the CIA and our collection requirements. Our collection requirements, I was from the Directorate of Operations. There are 4 directorates in the CIA. There's the Director of Administration that does all the administrative stuff, the Science and Technology that does a lot of satellite work. They do all of the support for people like me, disguise, documents, forgeries, all of that kind of work. The Directorate of Operations, which is the collection arm of the CIA, which I was part of, and then the Directorate of Intelligence, which is the analytic wing. And the Directorate of Intelligence in the CIA takes intelligence collected throughout the whole community and puts that together, and they are the ones then that feed the foreign policymakers. So back to how this works, the officers in each of these intelligence agencies interface with foreign policymakers and ask them, what do you want to know? Those questions are all put together in one office within the CIA, and that office decides then which agency has the best access to get to those questions. Does that make sense? So if you're asking a question about the wheat crop in the Ukraine, which is actually an important question now with Ukraine's issues, who would be collecting on that? Agriculture, not CIA. That's not a CIA issue. It's an intelligence issue, but it's an agriculture intelligence issue. What the CIA collects on, the clandestine service, is the agency within the government that works clandestinely. So we do not, like State Department or Agriculture or Treasury, go up to that foreigner and say, hi, I work for the USG. Tell me what you know about X, Y, and Z. We don't do that. What the clandestine service does is they work clandestinely. They develop relationships with people who have access to that information secretly. Okay? But we only do it for one kind of intelligence, and that is strategic intelligence. DOD is probably the biggest intelligence collector in the USG, but they collect tactical intelligence. And tactical intelligence is intelligence like, is the road paved between A and B? Will this bridge hold this size tank? What's the order of battle? What is the nature of the offensive capability of another country? What the clandestine service does is plans and intentions, the Directorate of Operations in CIA. So in other words, that question that you ask, what's Putin up to? What's Iran up to? Plans and intentions. And we only work in the area of human collection, or human intelligence. Now, what would that be? What does that mean, human intelligence?
People on the ground.
It's intelligence that we get from a person. The NSA, you know what the NSA is? Collects, they collect what is called SIGINT, signals intelligence. It's intelligence that you get through computers or over the airwaves or electronically. It's sometimes called ELINT too, SIGINT and ELINT. The clandestine service is the only collector of HUMINT. So what I have done all my life is figure out, get those questions in from foreign policy makers, asking, you know, what's Putin up to? I started my life as a Soviet specialist. So what is that leadership within the what was the Soviet Union, now Russia, up to? What do they intend to do vis-a-vis Ukraine? And figure out who has access to that information. Now, is Putin going to tell me that? No. But who might?
One of his aides.
One of his aides. Who else? One of his, well, yeah, one of his enemies, but then you have to sift through, why is he telling me this? Family members. Family members, friends and family. Aides, absolutely. Subordinates. You know, so Russia has lots of very high-placed ambassadors all over the world. So what I have to do in the clandestine service is figure out not only what the question is, who has access to it, but where those people are who have access to it. And then my job is to figure out how I'm going to get that guy to give me that information.